Hey listeners, welcome back to another Cardinal episode of What the Perf podcast. This is your host Mrinal along with Bhavna again.
Thank you, Mrinal. Hello, listeners. Welcome to today's episode of What the Perf podcast.
So today's episode is a short explainer about cardinality in database indexes. So without wasting any time, let's listen to some tech news Bhavna has collated for us this week.
I have three news items this time. So, my first news item for today is about Britain's world beating test and trace system for COVID positive patients is being run on Excel. Yes, you heard it right. Our very own MS Excel spreadsheet.
Truly world beating, I should say.
Yeah. The weekly rate of new COVID 19 cases soared in dozens of areas of England following the addition of nearly 16,000 cases that went unreported because of a technical error in the spreadsheet. The issue occurred when people who tested positive were not recorded once the master Excel spreadsheet reached its maximum size, which is 16,384 columns, aka XFD.
Oh, so 16,384 is the max number of columns that you can add in an Excel. That's a fun fact I got to know today. So I think they were caught off guard and they were not able to come up with a system to track positive patients. I saw many news outlets and Twitter users making fun of this incident.
I think Excel is the first thing that comes to mind when you want to tabulate something, but this is certainly not something you should be tracking on a spreadsheet.
Exactly. I have seen people go back to Excel even when they have really good and sophisticated tools. In my previous organizations, even though we had nice bug tracking tools like Jira and everything, people were still comfortable with tracking bugs in Excel. So you can't blame them. I should say India is doing very well in this regard. Indian government was quickly able to come up with a contact tracing app called Arogya Setu.
The second news item is about how India leads the world by processing 41 million real time transactions a day. As per the reports by FIS Global, the real time activity has further improved in the country with volumes jumping more than twice this year and the transactions value increasing almost 80%. China and South Korea, with more than 38 millions and 20 million daily transactions per day, respectively, compete the top three in the Asia Pacific region along with India. The Immediate Payment System IMPS and Unified Payment Interface UPI have revolutionized real time payment in India. Now, UPI in volume terms is touching new highs every month, and the pandemic has accelerated the adoption of digital payments hugely.
Yeah, I really can't remember when was the last time I used cash. I think the credit should go to NPCI, which has managed UPI and IMPS very well, even during such heavy surge in load during these times.
So yeah, in the last news item, I have some conference news. AWS is organizing an online conference called Awesome Day Online Conference. This is a free online training event to be held on 4th of November. A link is provided in the description. Do register to it.
Yeah, there will be lots of demos and QA sessions on many AWS services. If you want to get started with AWS, this is the conference to attend. Plus, you get a certificate of attendance.
Yeah, so that's all I have for this episode.
Thank you, Bhavna. So, Bhavana, today's topic is cardinality. Before we even get into explaining what cardinality is, let us look at what kind of performance issues we come across.
Yeah, so Mrinal, when we actually start testing an application, we usually concentrate on application servers and how the response time is and all that stuff. We forget that there is another component which is connected to it, which is DB. So I think database performance testing is in a way, at the beginning, we kind of do not give so much of prominence. What do you think, Mrinal?
Yes, that is why we tend to ignore one of the most common performance issues, which is lack of proper indexing. When you don't have proper indexes, the query that you run against your database tends to scan all of the records that are present in your table or collection. So this leads to very high input output per second on the database.
Yeah. So what happens with respect to a table? Say we will take an example of an employee table. We usually have data like employee ID, employee name, and last name, and salary, and all that stuff. So with when we want to create an index to this employee table, we will take the unique values, which are basically employee IDs, which is unique to each employee, and the index will majorly contain employee ID and the location at which this particular row or the data of this employee ID is stored. So whenever a person queries for that employee ID, then the index will directly go to that employee ID value and checks for the address and directly goes to the database or the table. So in this way, the full scan of the table is avoided, and there is just one search where it goes directly to the address of the table.
Yeah, so you highlighted one important point in whatever you said, Bhavna, which is the index being unique, right?
Yeah.
So every query is not always trying to get some unique value. For the example that you gave, which is
Yeah.
an employee table,
Huh.
a query may be written to find a value from the first name, from the last name, or maybe your unique ID, which is his employee ID, right?
Yeah.
So even if you have indexes for these queries, if the value in the index is not unique, that leads to again scanning of the whole index. So if your table has a million values and not all of them are unique, your query will again end up searching through all of these indexes, right? This
Yeah.
is where the cardinality comes into picture. So cardinality means uniqueness of any record within a table. Like you said, employee ID is a column which has very high cardinality. So more the uniqueness of a record, higher the cardinality. The more common the value in the column, lower the cardinality. So now that you know what cardinality means, when you're creating indexes, you should have cardinality in mind. So your query might be searching for data in many ways. There might be many columns in a table, and your query might be searching for data based on different columns. But if you want to create index, you have to definitely keep in mind the cardinality, and higher the cardinality, faster will be your search query result. So this has a side effect on the database, which is the more unique your data or higher the cardinality, bigger the size of the index. So the flip side to having indexes with high cardinality is that whenever you write new records to your database, a corresponding record has also should also be added to the index. So the more you add, the more records you add, the index size also grows correspondingly. So your write speed might decrease because of this. So there's always a trade-off when we are trying to optimize things. So that concludes a short explainer on cardinality.
To read more about cardinality and indexes, we have added links in the description. Listeners can make use of it.
Thank you, Bhavna. So that brings us to the last section of this episode, which is what the crash. In today's what the crash items, the first one is Florida's voter registration site went down on 5th October, which was supposedly the last date of registration. The site received about 1.1 million requests per hour. That's a huge number, right? uh,
Yeah.
Especially in the last few hours of the day. Officials have ruled out any possibility of malicious activity on the site. However, some news websites claim that the sudden surge in number of voters trying to register could be due to the singer Ariana Grande's Instagram post, which asked users to register on the site.
Yeah, even if it is because of Ariana Grande, the site administration should have anticipated this load, given that it was, the last day for registration. This is why it is important to stress test the application or at least increase infrastructure capacity for that period.
Yeah, I think this is one among the many more crashes that we're going to see until November, which is when the election is going to happen. So let's wait and watch. In the second crash news, we have Delhi University's admission website crashing under load, which delayed the admission process. This was the first time the entire admission process went online due to COVID pandemic. Nothing unexpected here. The administration should have anticipated this, and probably they were unprepared for such a huge traffic.
Yeah, basically, this pandemic situation has really pushed people to go online. But the thing is, they should not just go online, but they should also consider that they should be performant enough to handle surge in usage.
Exactly. I think university websites in India, particularly, really do not consider about how these will affect students and all that. So for them, I think it's business as usual. So Bhavna, what happens when you ask thousands of students to check their results on your site at a particular date and time?
Or maybe all of them start accessing the site a while before, and at some point the website becomes unresponsive or crashes.
Exactly. That's what happened with the NEET website. The results were expected on October 16th by 4 p.m. Anxious students who were expecting their results tried to log in exactly at that time, maybe a few minutes before, and as expected, the site crashed. The site did not come up for the whole day, and by the end of the day, the news says that the website displayed a message that the result facility is no more available. So it led to the students becoming more anxious. They were already anxious because the examinations were delayed due to COVID. I think it happened sometime in September.
Yeah, so maybe this can be avoided by just caching the results a day before, instead of letting every user run a search query on your database.
Exactly right. So, I mean, I don't know why they can't think of such solutions. Anyways, I think NEET site admin should talk to NPCI guys on how to keep their site running. So that brings us to the end of today's episode. I want to thank all of our listeners for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this short explainer on cardinality. If you find this podcast interesting, share it on social media. Your search queries will always use indexes if you share this on your social media. See you in the next one.